Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Hi, Bruce. Hey, Bruce.
Mr. Strang.
Yeah, could you come upstairs from the basement of the 48th floor of the Mildred A.
Yeah, I can do that. Just hang on a minute. Holy jeez, it's a long way out.
That is a long ways, but
that's a long. Can we get at least an escalator put in?
Yeah, an escalator or a series of escalators.
A series of escalators. You know, the elevator being out of service is just killing us now.
We really can't afford escalators. We can barely afford stairs.
Oh, well, okay.
There's a building in Orlando, Florida, not far from my home. It's on the west side of Orlando, Florida. The guy has been building it for approximately 22 years. It's an office building, and it's just basically empty inside. I feel that's the way I envision the Mildred A. McCracken building. We're all on the
big empty shell.
Yeah, we're all on the 48th floor. It's done, but we never had enough money to do the other 47 floors. So tonight we're going to do something really cool. Really cool.
What are we going to be doing tonight? How cool is it?
Or today, if you're listening to this in your car on the way to work, or this afternoon. It
could be afternoon.
Or this afternoon, yep. Or if you're
having lunch with somebody.
Yeah. This viewer writes, I'm a lonely trucker on the road in Arizona. Anyways, tonight have you ever heard of Kaylee Zheng?
I have.
I've heard
and I believe I've seen pictures of hers on Ralph de Blasie's page that he's run across her at some NMRA functions in the eastern part of the U.S.
So I kept hearing her name, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm to the point where like I'd heard it enough, and then I was walking around Springfield, and who did I bump into but none other than Kaylee Zheng.
What a coinky-dink.
Yeah, and she turned out to be a lovely young lady.
You had any doubts?
Well, I just, everybody was like, oh, Kaylee Zheng, and I'm like, all right already with the Kaylee Zheng.
Yeah.
So then I asked her, I said, after I bothered her at Springfield, I said, would you be interested at all if we interviewed you on The Big Shoe?
Ooh.
And she said she would be, and she turns out, so that's what we're going to do. So if you could go get her out of the green room, that would be
I will run down the hall and get her. And Kaylee, come on, Kaylee, come on out.
I'm coming already.
You weren't into the shrimp, were you?
Yeah, careful of the shrimp.
Oh, was it?
That's left over from Marty McGurk a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I was wondering about the coloring. It did seem a little off.
Yeah. They're no longer pink. They're kind of a green.
Green is yes. We'll go with green. We'll leave it at that.
And there's something wrong with the couch at the one end. It's kind of gurgling. There's some sort of it's been McGurked. So we suggest to everybody that you sit at the other end of the couch.
Oh, okay.
But
good to know.
But by all means, make yourself comfortable.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, Kaylee, I'm going to apologize before we even start.
Okay.
Because I'm one of those goofy guys that's bound to say something embarrassing or incorrect in today's social climate.
That makes it all the more entertaining, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, for some people. But, it's like I always say to people, if they just thought of me as their dim-witted brother, they'd be happier. Then they wouldn't expect much. Or be disappointed.
Certainly no shortage of fun, that's for sure.
Exactly. So how is this possible? How is this possible that there's a young lady in the hobby of model railroading? How is this even possible? Everybody else, it's like I came down Christmas morning and there were the trees going around the trains going around the tree, and I was in love with model railroading. Like, how does Kaylee Zheng get in? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or you could go with the substitute teacher that I had back in high school, who was actually from Scotland, and he pronounced it Zheng.
Zheng.
Zheng. Had a nice ring to it. I kind of liked it.
My problem in high school was French class, grade 10 French class, because in Canada that's mandatory. I was doing fine in school until the French teacher, she insisted that my name in French would be pronounced Lily Linnell. And then I was pretty much stuck with that for the rest of the year. People had hours and hours of fun.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, how does one young lady get? So, whereabouts do you live?
So I live in Connecticut, in just outside of Hartford.
Okay, so do you outside of Hartford? So you're a huge Hartford Whalers fan? No.
For
or not.
I was going to say while existed, sure. Actually, no. I'm actually a transplant from New Jersey.
So you're Devils.
So unfortunately, I'm a little more Devils.
All right.
I got the horns holding up the halo.
So how does one become interested in the hobby of modeling?
I guess you could call me a unicorn of the hobby, huh?
I don't think I would say that because I see lots of ladies and women in the hobby. So more and more, anyways. I wouldn't say lots, but I see more and more.
Yeah, no, that's actually true. I mean, even walking around in Springfield, it used to be going around and seeing pretty much more or less being the only women in the building, more or less, that's actually actively participating. But now I go around, everyone has. Well, I shouldn't say everyone has. Let me rephrase. There's certainly a lot more women that are actively participating, no longer just kind of sitting there patiently waiting for the day to wrap up and then kind of jet on out as soon as possible.
I know. I think that's kind of cool, actually. As much as a male chauvinist as I am, I think that's actually kind of cool. It was so much fun talking to you. I was so impressed with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been hearing all about Kaylee Zheng, and then I talked to you, and I went, "Wow, this is great." You don't mind if I call you a young lady, do you?
No, absolutely not.
All right. Yeah. So, anyways, it was fun talking to you. So, how did you get started in the hobby?
For me, growing up in New Jersey, I actually grew up in a town called Phillipsburg. And why is that significant is because Phillipsburg was a giant railroad town. In its heyday, I mean, Bethlehem Steel was only a half an hour away by car. So by rail, it was even quicker. But because of Bethlehem Steel, you had a lot of industries kind of pop up, and Phillipsburg was a huge manufacturing town. But not only that, it was actually a major junction in its heyday. I think 7 different railroads came through there. You had Pennsylvania, Central New Jersey, I believe the Erie Lackawanna, but then eventually Erie Lackawanna, Lehigh Valley, just to name a few. And of course, all of that came Conrail by the time I came around. And then subsequently now Norfolk Southern.
Right.
So that's really what was the interest that got me into the trains. Having my parents, their first apartment, my bedroom faced the trackside. So I remember waking up to the sound of the train, the diesels grumbling by with the different shapes and sizes of the freight cars, as well as like the colors and whatnot.
Right. And is there any easy way to give us a rough idea of where? Because it turns out people all over the world listen to this podcast. A lot of people in Australia and New Zealand and all sorts of places listen. So is there any easy way to give us an idea where Phillipsburg, New Jersey might be in relation to, say, New York City?
So, yeah, Phillipsburg, New Jersey is about an hour directly west of New York City. So it's right on the Pennsylvania border. And actually, the running joke is that in my high school, you can throw a football across the river and you could smack our rival Easton High School in the head with our football.
So was it on what river was it on?
The Delaware River.
Okay. And was the Delaware River pretty big there? Like are you close enough to the coast but at that point it was a pretty big river? Or?
Not quite. It was a decent sized river, but it still hadn't quite fanned out. We're still, I want to say, a few hundred miles before we hit the coastline or dumps out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, so there's no like barges or anything going up and down the river, nothing like that.
No, it used to be in the past, like in the 1800s, the Morris Canal was the main mode of transportation before the railroads, and
Okay.
Um, so that ran through the town, but once the railroad came, it quickly was abandoned, and railroad was the king mode of transportation.
Okay. Bruce,
Yes.
the 1800s. That's about when Ralph Renzetti was born, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Ralph was around just at the dawn of the 1800s.
Anyways, okay. So, were you interested? Like, do you remember being interested as a kid? Like, as in like 8 or 9, or
Yeah, I was fairly young. I can't remember the age now, but
okay,
so really interesting story how I actually got into model railroading was we had a department, not a department store, a grocery store that had a toy section. And
right,
I remember my dad buying a train set, just because I would see it in the bedroom, and obviously being recognizing the shapes of the cars, I was interested. So he bought a set it up. But unfortunately, with the 18-inch radiuses and the elevation, he tends to run it like a slot car. So yeah, needless to say, the train didn't quite navigate around the curve, so it ended up constantly derailing. And because of that, he grew frustrated with it and ended up returning it. So it was because of that act of returning it, I've been wanting a train set ever since. And
huh,
that's what kind of kicked me into the hobby was, oh, there's actually more than just this.
okay. Oh, that's cool. So, what year roughly would this have been?
Oof.
Like the late '80s,
Nine,
'90s.
yeah, like early 90s, 92, 93 ish.
Okay. So by then, Atlas Cato drives were available and stuff like that, and so okay. So he returns the train set to the store, and how long is it before you can get your hands on some equipment?
I was fortunate enough because it was a railroading town. We had a lot of hobby stores nearby, so I was probably maybe 12 years old when I finally got my first. Um, I purchased my first train.
Right,
First, I think it was an Athearn Blue Box, but um, prior to that, I for Christmas I got the old Bachmann Tyco Lifelike Tower Motor
right,
set from for like Christmas and whatnot. And I actually ended up trading one of those locomotives for I want to say an AHM when I
oh,
was in grade school.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
it was a Santa Fe AHM switcher.
huh, cool. I feel like there's.
Unfortunately,
I
go ahead.
was just say I feel like there's a lot of questions I want to ask, but a lot of them are going to come out sounding really stupid.
Well, in engineering, we always say there's no such thing as a stupid question, except for the one that you didn't ask.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. That's true. It's just obviously, let's. There's no point in kicking, a girl wanting trains and all that. That's kind of cool. Kind of different, very different. It's like
hmm
it's like girls that like racing. Like girls that like being involved in racing. It's not the norm, but it's not it's not unheard of. So you're going along, and like, did you join a club or anything, or?
actually, for the longest time ever, I was actually a lone wolf.
Okay.
It wasn't until maybe no, more than that, maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I finally did end up joining club. Um, See, for me growing up, my parents didn't really encourage it simply because they didn't believe, or from having immigrated from China,
Right.
they didn't understand the whole concept of a hobby.
Right. Okay.
So it wasn't. It was they saw it more as a toy, so it was an occasional treat and whatnot. Um, I mean, my dad did splurge a little bit, and if we saw something at a yard sale, he would buy it. So I actually ended up having bunch of sectional track that we ended up picking up from a yard sale, and so I had a small setup on the floor. But
Right. Right. Yeah. So he didn't necessarily discourage it. It just wasn't necessarily encouraged.
exactly.
Okay.
It wasn't until when I finally got into college, when I was finally out on my own, that I finally had the access or the ability to kind of really explore the hobby more into it. But of course, with school and whatnot, didn't really go too far with it.
So now you said earlier there, Phillipsburg was a railroad town, so there's a lot of hobby shops. So was Phillipsburg a model railroad town? Would you say?
The not necessarily Phyllis. Let's try that again. Not necessarily Phillipsburg. Probably in the greater Lehigh Valley. I think there is.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough, actually, a neighbor, next door neighbor of mine, happened to be a Lionel modeler, toy train collector, and he
Right.
had a layout in his basement, and that was my first layout I ever visited.
Oh, okay. That's the thing. I think there's more people in this hobby than we can even possibly imagine.
I think so too. It's just that not so many people are very visible with it.
Exactly.
Some people are, but not. I don't think everyone is.
No, it's like being a member. I always say it's like being a member of MI6. You're doing it, but you're not telling anybody
Right.
because it's not necessarily what the cool kids are doing. Except lots and lots of people really like the hobby.
hmm
So you really don't know who's in and who's out. But you always get the people when they find out you're interested in model railroad, and you always get the people coming up to you going, my grandfather had a set, and I was wondering what it's worth. Could you get it going for me? I mean, you always get those people. But then when
hmm
that conversation starts, somebody else will come up to you and you're standing over at the side of the room going, so you're into model railroading, eh? Yeah. Yeah, I got a layout at home. Right. Okay. So there you go. So, okay, Lehigh Valley makes up for, is like Easton, uh, Bethlehem, Allentown, all that. And that's a pretty populated area, isn't it?
It is. It is. Like I said, the Bethlehem Steel was a major industry player, and because of that steel plant, it spawned off so many smaller sub industries.
Right. And is Bethlehem Steel pretty much shut down now, or?
No, it's a casino now. So the joke is it's still making metal, just called money.
So I didn't even know there was a casino in Bethlehem. Cool. A friend,
Yeah.
a friend of ours. You're gonna have to seek him out. Tom Jacobs. He lives in Robesonia, Pennsylvania, which is somewhere around there, and he's building a big mushroom layout in a 20 by 36-foot building. I think that's the exact dimensions, is it not, Bruce?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, it's close enough. And Nazareth, Pennsylvania, isn't far from Phillipsburg either. You know what Nazareth is famous for? Would you like a hint? No,
It's hot dogs.
no.
Oh.
The Andretti family. Mario Andretti's from Nazareth.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. That's true. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a racetrack there as well.
There is a
Yep.
racetrack there too. It's exactly
Nazareth Raceway. Of course. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So okay. So your dad didn't. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have a sister.
Okay. She's a model. She's an avid model railroader too.
No, unfortunately not. I'm the black sheep of the family.
But you're like we say, your dad didn't discourage it. He just didn't encourage it.
Correct.
Okay. So you go to college to be what? Older?
Well, there's that. No, I went to college for mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering. Oh, that's cool.
hmm
And what is exactly? And now Bruce is an engineer. What kind of engineer are you, Bruce?
Geological.
Geological engineer. So you guys can talk about being engineers together.
There you go.
So what does being a mechanical engineer mean?
Mechanical engineering it entails a lot of things. Actually, it's probably one of the broadest forms of engineering. There's a lot of dealing with machineries, but also in areas where you wouldn't necessarily expect, such as biomedical, power, aerospace, that type of thing. So it's an all-encompassing engineering, and that's really kind of why I chose it, because it does a little bit of everything. You're kind of jack of all trades, but not necessarily a master of any.
Okay, and here's the word on the street. This is what everybody says when I hear the name Kaylee Zheng. They go, "Oh, she's a rocket scientist." Is there any truth to that rumor at all?
Well, I wouldn't quite say that.
Okay.
No, I actually do work in aerospace. So my company, MTU, is a contract supplier for engineering service provider, I should say, for a major engine manufacturer here in Connecticut, Pratt and Whitney.
Okay. So does Pratt and Whitney are they involved in aerospace?
Well, they make jet engines.
Okay, yeah. So Pratt and Whitney jet engines for airplanes. So you're involved in a company that is a contractor for Pratt and Whitney that makes Pratt and Whitney engines.
Correct. Ding, 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 ding. You got it.
Yeah. So you're not technically a rocket scientist. You're more like a jet engine scientist
Yeah.
or engineer, a
Yep.
mechanical engineer.
Yep.
This
I suck in.
here's
I
the
suck in air and poop it all out in the back.
There you go. So what kind of thing do you do for mechanical engineering? Like for Pratt and Whitney, what is your? I mean, I don't tell me anything you can't tell me. Not that anybody's listening, anyways. But what kind of thing? Because I'm fascinated. Here's me with aviation. I'm fascinated and terrified at the same time.
Mm.
Fascinated by it because I think it's like just the coolest thing how those giant planes thunder down the runway and they
Mm-hmm.
thrust. And a buddy of mine is an airline pilot, so he's got a little plane. He's taking me
Oh,
up and
cool.
yeah, and so we've done all that stuff. And,
Uh-huh.
and he tried to show me how to work the rudder and it's like don't do that, just let me steer it. So what exactly do you do in relationship to uh, turbine? Are they turbine engines or jet engines?
Yep. They're turbine engines. So yeah, they're technically called turbofan engines because what it is basically driving a giant fan that's sucking in a lot of air, and then that's what's giving you the bulk of your thrust.
Okay. It sucks air and
Hmm.
kind of squeezes it out in a smaller hole or something.
Right, exactly. So kind of like a giant balloon.
All right, and so you probably work on one specific part of it or something.
Yeah, the department I'm part of is we deal with the lube systems of the engine.
That's important.
So it's a slick job.
Ah, that's right, folks. You see her all week.
Yeah, try the veal. 2 shows a day. But bump. Uh, okay, yeah. So that's really important because if there's no lube, the engine seizes up, and then what you've got is me clinging to the seat, going, "Oh my god, oh my god." So
The,
I was
this
just
is true.
yeah, I was
No, I was
just
gonna say that's very very much true.
yeah, exactly. So whereabouts did you go to school or like
Uh,
college?
um, I went to actually a local school here in Connecticut, University of Hartford.
Okay, how'd you end up
So
in Hartford? Because that's where Pratt and Whitney is.
no, it's actually because of college. I originally only applied to a small handful of schools. My actually funny story. My number one choice school was actually Lehigh University in Bethlehem.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they turned me down, but because it turned me down on Valentine's Day,
Oh.
it made the pain of being rejected not so bad because of the irony of it all.
Yeah, exactly. So then you ended up at working up or going to school up in Hartford.
Right, because my other choice was in Boston, and that was actually going to be my first choice, was to go to Boston. But when I visited the campus, it was small, it was smack dab in the city. Um, and then I visited University Hartford campus, where it was much more open and country-like, and was very reminiscent of home. Did I chose to go to and come to Connecticut?
Ah, okay. And you there you're not far from Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, true, very true.
Exactly. Have you ever heard of the movie French Connection?
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Oh, okay. You should watch it then because they talk about Poughkeepsie there.
Okay. Well, I
Uh,
know the show, The Office, is based in Poughkeepsie, so.
is it really? I didn't know that. I did not
Mm.
know that.
Oh, wait, no. Is it Poughkeepsie or is it Scranton?
I have no idea. Why
Now
would
I'm
you?
getting
Why? The only reason you want to go to Scranton is because of the Railroad Museum. What's it called?
Steamtown.
Steamtown. I haven't been to Steamtown in years. All right. I want to find out more about. Here's my problem. Bruce, see if you can back me up on this one.
I'll do my best.
Okay. Here's my problem. All I've heard about for the last 2 years or 3 years is Kaylee Zheng. Kaylee Zhang this and Kaylee Zhang that and Kaylee Zhang the next thing. I went to one of her clinics and Kaylee Zhang was awesome. What do you? So I'm trying to figure out how did Kaylee Zhang end up where all I heard was Kaylee Zhang and I had to meet her.
So what I've been doing a lot lately is presenting um, using a different type of source of speakers for DCC sound.
Ah, yes, that's right. Okay, I've heard of that. Yes.
So right. So what I go around and present about is using the loudspeakers from a cell phone as the main speaker for your locomotives. And
The loudspeakers.
the yeah. So when you have not necessarily hands free, but you put it on and then you could hear
Right.
just come out of the back of your cell phone. Reason being is that a lot of the speakers that are being manufactured for the hobby
Yes.
basically sound not that great.
Right.
But when you think about the design requirements, and that's the big thing about my presentation, is that not only do I kind of go through why it sounds terrible, but also too, when you think about the design requirements of the cell phone speakers, it's got to be small, it's got to be high fidelity, you got to have it to be able to fit into a tight environment. Well, hey, that's exactly how our locomotives are situated these days, where we're packed to the hilt with weight, with electronics, and just in general, there's not much space in there.
Right.
And the slim profile of it is what makes it very advantageous to go with something like this. And you're getting the benefit of having an engineered product that's all packaged and ready to go. So you solder your wires to it, and you solder your other ends of the wires to the decoders, and ta-da!
Ah. So what do you go around buying old cell phones? Like, how old of a cell phone can you get to get one of these decent speakers?
Really, any modern generation cell phones, it will suffice. I mean, the technology is improving almost on a daily basis nowadays. And what I usually use is I actually have contacts using purchasing parts suppliers.
Oh yeah.
So I don't have to go around smashing cell phones. I don't have to be a Gallagher about it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And smashing watermelons. Now
Exactly.
there's a Bruce Gallagher. There's a good reference.
Yes.
We need more Gallagher references on the podcast.
That's right.
I was a little off topic, Bruce, but you'll be interested in this. I was interviewing Mike Wachowski and Mike Ostertag the other night. Mike Ostertag was helping me because they're both from Green Bay, home of the home of the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. Anyways, I was talking about the podcast and how it's getting out of control, and they said, yeah, when it gets up to 88 miles an hour, watch out. They made a very good Back to the Future reference. So yeah, that's exactly.
Well,
So how do you?
played.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, so now we have to investigate. We have to figure out how we got from going to the university. What was it called in Hartford? What's it called?
University of Hartford.
The University of Hartford. That's kind of coincidence.
Pretty
And
original, right?
yeah, that is very original. So how did we get to? We get to the University of Hartford to the point of where you're doing presentations about cell phone speakers and locomotives. Somewhere in there, the hobby flourished for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was actually at my second job. One of my coworkers, her husband was a model railroader, and actually, the day I started, I was setting up my desktop background on my computer, and she just happened to walk by as I was putting some layout photos I had snapped from the net, or technically stolen from the net, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
We're doing research.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Research. Exactly. And then literally she walked by and came up to my cubicle and she said, "Oh God, you're one of those." So here I am, brandy new, almost fresh out of school. I mean, I was 2 years in the field at that point. Just frozen with like deer in headlights.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
You're a model railroader. Oh, how did you figure? Look at your background. Oh, you really, and then literally she said, "You really need to meet my husband. He's part of the club that's based out of Wallingford, and happened to be, there's going to be an upcoming train show nearby. You should really go check it out." So yeah, I went there, and long story short, I ended up meeting Lou, and he introduced me to our local club, which I'm now part of, the New Haven Society of Model Engineers. And yeah, that's from there. It was just downhill, so to speak.
And how many years ago was this that you met Lou?
Now we're pushing probably 6 years.
Okay, this was Lou Pampanello, who I met with you in Springfield.
That's correct, Lou Papineau.
Papano. Okay,
Smith
Pampanello.
of Canada. Come on, Lionel. You should know
Yeah,
that one.
Pampanello though. That's a good name.
It actually does have a nice rhyme to
It
it.
does, dude. Yeah, let's see next time you see him, see if you can get him to change his name to Pampanello. That would
I'll work on
that would be that name right there. Lou Pampanello, left winger, New York Islanders, 97
that.
to 2008. Played 282 games in the NHL. Career with 103 goals. That just sings. So you know what's going to happen next year at Springfield. I'm going to go, oh yeah, Lou Pampanello.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll have no idea where that came from. So okay, so all right, so you meet Lou's wife, and then you join the club. So where did you say the show was? Wallingford.
Our club was based in Wallingford, Connecticut, which is about 20 minutes north of New Haven.
All right, where's New Haven? And I'm seeing Hartford. Where's New Haven?
New Haven is about an hour south of Hartford.
Okay, is that where you're working now?
No, I'm actually working in a different part of town, East Hartford. Yes, we're very original with our names here in Connecticut.
So okay, so now I'm confused, which you'll find is kind of a standard thing. So the club is based in New Haven, which I'm looking on a map is on the Long Island. What's it called? Long Island Sound? Is that Long Island Sound?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And okay, and Hartford is like an hour north.
Yep.
So, but you work in Hartford, and the club is in New Haven. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Pretty much.
Okay, so you travel down to New Haven to be part of the
Mm-hmm.
club?
Yep.
Okay. And have you ever been to Old Saybrook?
Yes, I have.
You're gonna have to look up a fellow named Chris Adams.
Yep, he's a good friend of mine.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, I'm actually an operator on his layout. So it's been
Oh,
fun.
oh, cool. So how did you meet Chris?
So I met Chris through the what you call it, the prototype model railroading, railroad prototype meets that
Uh,
we actually have here in Connecticut
okay, yeah, because you have one. Do you have one every year there or every other year?
every year.
Okay. And the thing that I really like Chris a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing I find really annoying about him, he's one of those healthy guys, thin and healthy. He's one of those fit.
Yeah.
He's one of those fit guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of disgusting to see him posting afternoon run around
I
City of
know.
Hartford.
Yeah, I know. It's
Uh,
like nobody cares, Chris. Keep it to
me,
yourself.
Meanwhile, munching down on the big fat cheeseburger and some fries
I
with
know
a bottle of Coke.
exactly. Yeah. Here I am at the in the morning. Here comes the train at 6 o'clock in the morning on my morning ride. And I just want to call him up and say, nobody cares. Like just
No, but he's an awesome guy,
he
though.
is an awesome guy. I like Chris a lot. I've never met Debbie, but I got a feeling she's pretty cool too.
She
But
is.
to
She
be
is.
fair, though, Lionel, we did see him tucking into barbecue on the Friday night.
That's true. It's true. We had barbecue with him at Bear's Barbecue on Friday night. Had a grand old time with him, and he brought brownies from Debbie on. He brought brownies from Debbie on the Friday nights, and we shared.
Yes, he did. A bag full
Wow.
of brownies.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. So all right, so Lou was your first introduction into the hobby in like the main part of the hobby, like you were a lone wolf until you met Lou, kind of thing.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, from early, even in college days, I would pop over to Springfield train show for a couple hours. Granted, nothing near as much as or nothing like what I'm doing now, having representing both the club and part of the hobby store.
What hobby store are we talking about now?
So I more or less quote unquote work at local hobby store here called Tom's Trains.
Oh, okay. So quote unquote work, like as in you actually work there, or are you just like hanging out there, or what?
More or less, I hang out there, and I just happen to help customers that come in from time to time.
Oh, cool. And
So, but
and
but
we're
the primary thing that I do there is actually do a lot of the technical stuff. So, decoder installs, troubleshooting, locomotive troubleshooting, that type of thing is between me and Lou. We've kind of split up that task for the store.
Okay, so now I'm starting to get to the part where you got to talk to Kaylee Zheng. You got to talk to Kaylee Zheng because she's really cool. Because now I'm starting to get the drift.
Ah.
That's because basically the way I change a light bulb is here at the old AML network is I stand on a chair and two people turn it. So okay, I found
Sounds
it.
like work.
Yeah, exactly. Tom's Trains of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Winter is coming. Get trains. Okay, so how, so are you, do you obviously like the electronic side of model railroading.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when did you discover you liked electronics? Like as you're growing up, are you like one of these people that's taking the family toaster apart?
More than one occasions, yes.
I hope it was unplugged first.
Oh, where's the thrill in that?
Yeah, exactly.
True enough.
Gives me a jolt in the morning, that's for sure.
Yeah. So okay, so that's cool. So how did you? So it just came naturally to you, the electronics side of it.
Yeah, machines in general kind of just talk to me growing up, and I think that's what drove me to go to engineering. Aside from actually wanting to work with trains, that was always my dream job.
Right.
But in general, just machines just talk to me. I'm not sure why. Just it's very to me, it's very logical. It's very straightforward.
Right.
So the doing decoders and electronics is just another step forward. Electronics can be a little cumbersome and a little confusing at times because you're dealing with an imaginary particle than, say, a drivetrain. But at the end of the day, I think it's just that challenge, the technical challenge that it provides.
Right. Okay. So, when did you start doing? When did you start becoming interested in the electronic side of trains? Like, when do you feel like, okay, you got out of college and you started really working on it on trains? And like, when did you start to notice that the electronic side of model railroading was pretty cool?
Um,
Let me ask you another.
one,
Let me ask you another
okay,
question. Did any of
go for
that?
it.
Did any of that make any sense to anybody? Because by the time I got to the end of it, I wasn't even sure what I was saying. Like it's like it's like it's like I like scenery or track laying, and there must at some point you must have kind of went, ah man, decoders, this is cool.
I think it was when the first time I actually experienced DCC um, firsthand. I know I've always seen DCC, I've seen people use DCC, but it's always been kind of this far off nebulous topic. I obviously when I was living in the apartment and even when I was in college, I wasn't necessarily able to build a layout.
Right,
So vicariously, I was living through people at the train shows, living through the people on the magazines and whatnot. But when I actually really got to experience DCC myself, it was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. How does this work?
right,
Oh, you need a decoder. Okay, how do you install the decoder? Oh,
right.
that's it. And then the rest is history, as they say.
So where was the first place you were exposed to DCC at the club,
It was at the club, correct?
and which is called the New Haven.
Society of Model Engineers.
Yeah, I'm never going to remember that.
Yeah, we always just abbreviate it by NHSME.
Yeah, I'm never going to remember that either.
Can we just call it the club?
Yeah, the club. So okay, so what kind of DCC system were they using?
Well, our club uses Digitrax.
Okay.
So, but I'm actually in the process of building my own layout now. So, and I've since the introduction, I've been introduced to other systems. So, my preference is NCE.
Yeah, mine too. Is it because it's easier to use?
It is. It's easier to use, and also too from a programming or even a usability standpoint. It's because it's when you get the power cab, it's all one unit. It's all in your hands.
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of move things around.
Yeah. And okay, and so are you as excited about sound as everybody else is? Because that seems to be the way a lot of the hobby's going.
Absolutely. I think sound actually has changed the hobby, much like how DCC itself had changed the hobby when it was introduced. But like all good things, you can easily and quickly overdo it. So I can understand how some people can be turned off by it.
Right. So then this is how you ended up doing So when was the first clinic you did? Like, how did you stumble into doing a clinic in model railroading?
So being a presenter, I think, is part of the territory as an engineer. So that's always been with me. I've actually been fortunate or unfortunate, depending on your point of view, unafraid to go up and present.
Right.
So stumbling across a topic that kind of I was passionate about, sound, and then being introduced, I think it was a coworker who was also a model railroader had mentioned he saw somewhere on the net. I think it was from it was a blog post on MRH, Model Railroad Hobbyists, about someone saying, "Hey, what about using speakers from your cell phone as a speaker for your locomotive?" And that's that moment the light bulb went on. I was like, "Oh, the design requirements are the same, huh? Let me see this."
Right.
And so I tried one. I was like, "Oh." So being a musician, I play the guitar. Yeah. So I'm always constantly seeking for the best sound, best quality sound.
Right.
And just having been around the shows and been around the club where I'm hearing these locomotives that just sounds very tinny, which, hey, it's great that you have sound, but they just kind of sound meh.
Yeah.
Wasn't really inspiring. Then hearing the output of these the cell phone speakers, I'm like, whoa, I gotta share this.
Right. And so, did you hook one up yourself, or did you hear one working?
I hooked one up myself.
Ah, cool. So just kind of like stuck it in, got a decoder and stuck the wires to it, and away you went, kind of thing.
Pretty much, yeah. So, and that's the other thing too. The first time I actually unveiled this presentation was at the prototype meet here in Connecticut, our New England prototype meet. And looking at the programs, at that point I already attended 2 years by then.
Right.
This would put it to be in I want to say 2014.
Okay.
Looking at the program, you saw a lot of modeling, but you didn't see anything about the electronics or DCC or sound in general, other than maybe Matt Herman kind of doing whatever he was doing with ESU.
Right.
So I'm like, huh, interesting. I know a lot of people are afraid of dealing with the electronics, or a lot of people have a lot of questions as to what makes sound good, what makes sound bad. Let me throw something together and pitch it out, see what happens.
And that's when the legend of Kaylee Zheng was born. It was first fella that I ever heard about you was from a fella named Ralph Renzetti, Ralphie Boy. He was telling me about you because he went to some convention or something. And then I started hearing more about you, and I'm like, all right, already enough with this Kaylee Zheng thing. And now this is the best part. Now I'm assuming you've listened to every single one of our podcasts over the last 3.5 years. But now this is the best part. You said you're a musician as well, so I want to find out about that. So, you play the guitar?
Mm-hmm.
And how did that start?
It's actually just kind of natural progression. In grade school, I actually played the saxophone. Alto sax, that's where I started. But then
hook up with Dave Barraza.
I know we're getting to that. We're getting to that.
So yeah, by the time I was in high school, unfortunately, my high school kind of pushed music or marching band kind of as a career path, and for me, I had a very strong indication early on that I was going to be an engineer.
Right.
So I ended up dropping it. But music has always been part of me. It's always it gets into underneath my skin, and it's just part of me. So I ended up picking up the guitar because, well, all the cool kids are doing it. Why the hell not?
Exactly. It's like podcasts. All the cool kids listen to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So
what kind of have you ever heard of a guy named Dave Barraza? Probably not.
Nope.
He lives on he lives on Long Island, so he's in your area. And
He's my territory.
Yeah, he was a saxophone virtuoso and went to Berklee School in Boston.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Like he was the real deal, and he's a really cool guy, and he works for the Union Switch and Signal Company, and he designs signal systems for the New York transit system.
No kidding. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you would have heard that when we interviewed him. You would have heard all that.
Oh,
But
oops.
anyways, uh, Dave, one of my favorite songs is "Darling Love, Come Home Baby for Christmas" or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this really cool saxophone solo in it.
Uh-huh.
So his job was to listen to it and do that record that saxophone solo, but he never did.
Aw.
I know. And
Bummer.
I know. So you could probably pick up a saxophone and play it.
It's honestly been years, so
Right. But you're a musician, and musicians generally, if they want to, can play pretty much anything, can't they?
Sort of.
Sort of,
Sort
right?
of.
Okay. So what kind of music do you like?
I listen to just about everything. I mean, the only thing I really don't listen to is like death metal, rap.
Right. Right. Yeah. And
But other than that,
are you in a band?
everything's a fair game.
Yeah. Are you in a band or anything?
No, no. As much as I may say that I claim to be a musician, I'm actually not. Well, I don't think I'm all that great. So,
Right. Okay. So you like playing the guitar,
I
and
play for my own entertainment.
yeah. Well, I imagine it would be pretty relaxing.
It is. Usually, when I'm thinking, you
Oh,
can find a guitar in my hand. You know how some people like fiddle around with something like a ruler or a piece of paper or just tap on the table? No, for me, it's guitar.
oh, okay. Well, when I'm thinking, I'm usually on my motorcycle, but not long after that, I'm usually sitting in front of a squad car. So, uh, so what's your favorite song to play on the guitar? Don't say
Probably
don't say House of the Rising Sun.
no, no. Actually, I don't believe it or not. I don't know that song. No, I was gonna say "Landslide," Fleetwood
Lance
Mac.
Landslide. Do you know that song, Bruce?
I sure do.
I don't know. Would I know that song if I heard it?
Yes, you would.
Okay. I don't really know the titles of songs very much. But my brother-in-law, he played guitar, and it was "House of the Rising Sun" by the Animals, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. There is a house in. Oh, all right, enough with that. Okay, so you play guitar, but you play it for yourself, and you're probably going to get better. So that's important because if you ever get like you end up playing in the E Street Band or something, I don't want you to forget me.
Who could ever forget you?
There you go. There you go. So all right, so we need to explore. So what's it like operating on Chris Adams' layout?
A lot of fun. A lot of paperwork, but
Or,
it's a lot of fun.
yeah, and he has it in it's like in 2 or 3 rooms, isn't it?
hmm So it covers the basement, but the way the basement's set up, it's kind of split. Um, so you have one portion of the layout is in one part of the room, and it cuts through over to another portion of the layout. So he's modeling basically, essentially, the area where we're all living.
Yes. And he drives up Highway 2 from Old Saybrook to Hartford to work. But
hmm
but he has a really cool blog too.
He does. He does.
And are you part of his New Haven Photo Hysterical Society cataloging team?
No, unfortunately, I don't have the patience for that. That's old stuff. No, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
yeah, exactly. So what's your favorite? What's your favorite? If you were so you're starting to build a layout.
hmm
So are you still in an apartment? You got a house, a condo?
Yep. No, I have my own house now.
Okay, cool. So you got a basement with a free house on top of it.
Booyah.
So what are we building? What's the plan?
Well, originally I was going to do something in Conrail. I mean, for me, growing up in Phillipsburg, Conrail was a big part of my life. But unfortunately, Conrail being a Class 1 carrier, it didn't really have a lot of switching. And having gone to many layouts, being involved with some of the operating groups here in Connecticut, switching actually ended up becoming kind of more important for me, or at least was more interesting for me. So I ended up going to build a short line, but it's actually a fictitious short line.
So you're proto freelancing.
Proto freelancing, right? And it's going to be a combination of different things. In Phillipsburg, we actually had a little short line. It was Black Black River and Western Railroad, and it ran on what's known as the Belldel line, Belvedere Delaware line.
Okay.
When what's special about that is that they always had a switcher, but more importantly, they were still pushing cabooses at the time because they were using it as a shoving platform,
Oh.
and that's something I really want to replicate.
Oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So, what kind of size are we building on this layout?
It's small because my primary focus with this layout isn't so much the operating aspects. It's actually more for the photography, because that's another hobby of mine, and it's a fairly recent hobby. Was to kind of photograph my layout, rail fan on my layout.
Which is a great thing to do. I mean, that to me is when you start to really see how good of a modeler you are. Is when you start taking photographs of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because then you can see your imperfections. I remember when I started photographing my layout, I thought, apparently I'm not as good at this as I thought I was.
With your interest in sound, are you going to look at ambient background sounds on your layout?
I thought about it. The only problem I find is that it may be too much. You know, you got locomotives, you have the sounds. I think here and there I will sprinkle out some sounds. So certain things like grade crossings, those are gonna for sure have you're gonna hear the bell. That's like an absolute must.
Okay, so how big is the layout going to be then?
Right now I'm looking it to be like 8 by 10-ish.
Okay,
And
so
around the wall type of thing.
around the wall, like a shelf layout, 8 by 10.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And so you're gonna be in the modeling, the scenery, setting the stage for photography is going to be a big part of that then.
Right.
Okay. And what kind of camera are you going to use, or do you use for photography?
Believe it or not, my cell phone.
Really, eh? That's becoming more and more popular.
It
Bob,
is.
Bob Fallowfield.
Yeah, there's a guy in Canada named Bob Fallowfield who's a friend of Matt Herman's.
Ah.
And he always posts, if you go look on, what's it called? Canadian Model Prototype Modelers or something, Bruce?
Yeah, the Facebook page. I think that's a Canadian Prototype Modeler.
Yeah.
Or he has his own Bob Fallowfield's Woodstock or something like that.
So how about depth of field on a cell phone? Like, I only take cell phone photographs just for the heck. I don't really pay any attention to depth of field, because that was the big deal when you photographed for Model Railroader, was depth of field, and you needed an SLR so you could. What about, is there any way to improve depth of field on a cell phone?
Sort of. I think there is. I haven't really played into it too much. For me, I actually love photography where you have some background blur. So the short focal lengths of the cell phone cameras actually naturally allows for that.
Yeah, and what kind of cell phone are you using?
I'm a big fan of the Samsung Galaxy phones.
Okay. See, my son loves those.
Yeah. Apple phones are great. They take great photos too, but unfortunately, I just can't stand, as an engineer, I cannot stand the Apple environment.
Well, now why is that? I don't understand that at all, because I used to be I'm strictly Apple. My entire life is Apple. I have an iPad, and my computer's I like a Mac Pro. I have the big iMac computer. I have my Apple cell phone. So what is it about Apple that you don't like?
For me, the Apple environment it's just too restrictive. You have to do it the Apple way. You can't do it the intuitive way.
Oh,
so,
okay.
for example, like if I want to on an Android device, if I want to put music on my phone, it's just click, drag, drop, done.
Right.
I don't have to go through iTunes. I don't have to download this. I don't have to download that. I don't have to yada 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 yada.
Okay, so you and Bruce the Mailboy would get along swell, because you guys, neither one of you guys are Apple guys.
Yeah, I've got a Galaxy S5.
Nice.
So which is the better? What my son has, I don't know, some super duper Galaxy phone. What's the super duper Galaxy phone right now?
S8.
Okay, and 5 is, how many generations ago is the 5?
Mine's a couple of years old now.
Yeah, it's at least 3 generations.
Which one do you have, Kaylee?
I have the 8. I actually just recently upgraded. I've had the 4 for the longest time ever.
And do you notice much difference in the camera?
Oh, much difference.
And how big of a file can you get?
I think right now my 8 punches out 16 megapixels.
Or how many megs would that be? Like, I don't know that. I have no idea what you're
Uh,
talking. I have never have any idea what anybody's talking about.
yeah.
And you know why that is? Do you know why I have no idea what anybody's
No.
talking about? Because you'd be better off just thinking of me as your dim-witted brother. So,
Nice.
make
Nice. I
so
like that full circle.
I know exactly. So okay, so like I'll take a picture and it'll say, 16 megabytes. So is that a pixel? Is that a like 1.1? If you get a picture that's like 1.1 megs,
Hmm.
is that right? Is
It's
that
a That's a little small. I think the photos I'm pushing out are closer to like I want to say 5 or 6 megs.
Yeah, that's about what mine are, somewhere in that range.
all right? So that's
Depends on what resolution you have it set as.
Right. Hmm.
I knew that. I knew that. So okay, so that's a pretty high quality
Hmm.
photograph because I mean a lot of the ones I put on my website are only like 640 kilobytes or something like that.
Right. Yeah, you have to compress it because obviously it takes up space.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just looking at mine, I go from 16 meg down to 6 meg, depending on what size and aspect ratio I take.
Hmm.
I don't even have any idea what my iPhone does. I have an iPhone 7, but I don't know what size. It usually seems
Yeah, it's probably pretty damn close.
okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
because it's all within a generation or two, so it's roughly the same.
Right. Exactly. It's amazing what iPhone or phone
Right.
cameras do now. It's
Oh
just
yeah. I mean, I do have a DSLR, so I will use that from time to time. But I just find that the shots I can get out of the cell phone, it really feels like you're there. So
right.
it carries a lot more emotions with the photos, and that's why I love it.
Really. So let's
So yeah.
what's the word? What's the word I'm trying to think of? Let's investigate
The
that.
Fallowfield effect. That's exactly what Bob Fallowfield says. He can get that camera and stick it right down in the scene, and
Right.
it's like you're right in there.
Okay.
Exactly.
And see, and I don't get too excited about it because he can't get the depth of field. I want, and it'd be interesting to see if. So I'm looking at one of my iPhone pictures and it says 1.7 megs MB. That's megs, right?
Megabytes. Yep. Hmm.
Okay, so that's pretty small then compared to what you're doing.
Right. But again, like Bruce said, it's all dependent on the settings.
Right. So maybe that's the way mine's set up.
Right.
Uh,
So, and also too, it depends on the subject. So if you take a picture in like the forest, it's gonna explode in terms of size simply because there's a lot of things going on versus a picture of a wall, a
okay.
plain wall.
So it'll automatically decide how many megapixels it's going to do then.
Right. Hmm.
I knew that. I had no idea.
Yep.
Uh,
I was just refreshing.
yeah. So I'm looking at a picture I took of me and my buddy Bob. It's ISO 50.
Hmm.
Uh, it was f-stop at 2.2 and
Hmm.
1/30th of a second, and it came out at 1.7 megs. So that's probably going to be one of the new things is where people get more and more creative with their cell phone cameras.
Hmm. I absolutely. Cell phones, believe it or not, actually has so much applications to the modern railroad community simply because, when you, like I said before, think about it, the engineering requirements are virtually the same.
Okay, and how do you mean?
So it's got to be small. Well, it used to be it's got to be small and compact so it fits in your pocket purse, whatever.
Right,
But seems like the trend is reversing nowadays. But still, um, your components have to be small in order to have battery life. So that means batteries got to be miniaturized. Well,
right,
hey, if we can get a battery that's high in density, power density, small enough, well, hey, stick it in our locomotives. I know the Dead Rail Society is doing it now, but the technology isn't quite there yet.
no,
But who knows? A few years from now, it could be the new rage.
yeah, it could be. I'm not so sure I'm keen on that because it sounds like it'd be a lot of work plugging in 60 locomotives to get them recharged.
Right. But with advance, and that's actually brings me to the next point. The advances of inductive charging or wireless charging. You see Samsung, you see Apple all talk about it. You just leave your phone on this pad and it charges. Well, if you have this pad buried underneath a fuel terminal,
Right.
there
Okay.
you go. Park the locomotive at the fuel terminal. It's being fueled.
And how does that work, that inductive charging?
Black magic.
Yeah, it's magic,
Is that what it is? It's just black magic?
pretty much.
And so, okay, so neither...
We're just thinking of our dim-witted brother right now, so just think it's magic and you're good to go.
Ah, okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yes.
It's magic. Ah, okay. So what other layouts have you operated on?
Couple around nearby. I had another friend who lives in a nearby town, John Sacerdoti. He's actually the showrunner
Yes.
for the Springfield Show.
Yes, we met John. We met him.
Yep. Yeah, awesome guy. Really nice gentleman.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so I've operated on his layouts.
Okay, so what's John Sacrdoti's layout? Oh, this will be interesting for people. So John Sacerdoti, I think he told us, Bruce, he ran the show for 15 years, has he not?
Something like that. He's been doing it a long time.
A long time, and yeah, and he's part of the Amherst Railway Society, something or other. Whatever.
Yep, the club is Amherst Railway Society.
So do you belong to that club or no?
Yes.
Ah.
But more as a sponsor, if you will.
A sponsor, like you have millions of dollars and you just throw them.
I wish I did.
Yeah, don't we?
No, I joined the club simply because they support us at the New England prototype meet.
Okay.
So it's kind of the money that I'm contributing to them is helping support us indirectly in a roundabout way.
Okay. So it sounds like you're getting pretty heavily involved in the New England prototype meet then.
Yeah, it's a different group that puts it on, but just having seen what it's been, having that sense of community that's given me, so it's kind of my way of giving back to them.
Okay, and where do they usually hold the RPM meets for New England?
It's held at the Holiday Inn in Enfield, Connecticut, which is like on Massachusetts-Connecticut border.
Yes, it is. That's where I always stay, at the Hampton Inn in Enfield, Connecticut.
Okay, yeah. Actually, we're at the Holiday Inn.
Okay. The Holiday Inn.
Nearby.
The Holiday Inn Express or the actual Holiday Inn?
I think it's Holiday Inn Express.
All right, cool. So
it's actually not a bad hotel.
Yeah, it is. It's a fine place. Okay, so does the Amherst Society have like different levels of membership, so you can just belong and you're part of the society kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And
yeah.
And what is John modeling? How big is his layout?
I forgot the exact dimension. It's a decent sized layout. I want to say 30 is one of the dimensions. I forget if it's length or width.
I think Bruce, I think John was kind of holding out on us when we interviewed him at the show.
Well, we were just talking about the show basically because we were finding all the wonderful things they're doing with their donations and how they give everything back to others and don't keep much at all.
Yes, I was just listening to that episode not very long ago, and yeah, we were both quite impressed with the fact that they turned them all the money over as charity. All their profit is charity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very cool. And then at the end, I talked to him for kind of like the same time I talked to you, about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Oh, here's a question, Kaylee, because this particular interview will probably come out towards July or August because I'm backed up, but your Springfield one will come out much sooner than that. When we were talking at Springfield, like after 10 or 15 minutes, were you kind of just going, geez, I wish this guy would leave. So anyways, when we talked to John Sacerdoti, right at towards the end, we said, okay, so what about your model railroading? And he was very, Bruce, what's the word? He was very humble about it. It made it seem like there wasn't much happening at all, and now it turns out that Kaylee's operating on his layout.
Oops, did I spoil his secret?
No, I don't think.
We'll find out. We'll get him.
Oh yeah, we'll find out next year. We'll hunt him down like a mad dog, but yeah, we might have to interview him for the podcast. Okay, so
exactly.
so he's got a good layout that's going and operating in the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And what's he modeling?
I think he also does a proto freelance type of thing. It's Boston, and it's not based. It's based on just kind of New England railroads in general,
Okay.
but it's Boston and something. I forget what it was.
And
Yeah, but
Boston
it's
and
based.
something.
Yeah.
I think that railroad I think that railroad was swallowed up by Lehigh Valley in the 50s. The Boston and something. Boy,
Yeah,
come on.
probably.
Come on now. That
It was
wasn't
one of
bad.
those great waves of takeovers that went on.
That wasn't that bad. I mean, dead silence there. Like, okay, so and any other layouts you operate on?
um, and a couple of other local ones nearby here. Trying to think of their names.
So how often do you get to operate?
Not as much as I would like.
So you really like it then?
I do. Because for me, model railroading should serve a purpose, whether it's having for entertainment, but for me, it needs to operate like a business. It has to have a function, a reason why it exists.
Right.
So that tends to lead to the operation side of things. You're moving a carload from destination A to destination B.
Right. All right. So here I'm going to ask you the question that I'm asking everybody because I'm dying to figure out that this is what the purpose of this podcast has become. This is what I want to find out. What is the thing about model railroading that attracts people to it? I've been in the hobby for 58 years, maybe 56 years, and I haven't figured it out.
Well, as it was all put in past, the answer to the life, the universe, and everything is 42. So,
all right,
that's my answer.
Okay, 42. What's that
42.
mean? What's that mean? Anything?
Oh, you never seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No, I've heard of it. I don't know if I've ever actually watched the whole thing. Bruce, I bet you have.
Nope.
Oh, perfect. No, I don't feel so bad.
Oh, okay.
Haven't seen it. Haven't read the book, so
I've heard of it.
Yep.
And so what is the answer to the universe is 42 in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Right. So no, in all seriousness, I don't know. I don't know what drives. I think it's just us being able to kind of go in our own worlds. We deal with our daily stressors that kind of is a lot of times out of our control. But in model railroading, we have that ability to kind of create our own worlds. I kind of go into it a little bit, or in the documentary that I was part of by Sarah Kelly.
You were part of that?
Yep.
Oh, come on! You can't hold on us now. See, Bruce, isn't every interview like this?
It is.
Every interview we do, you'll be like interview like 103 or 4 or something. Every one that we've done, we always get to the point in the interview like where we go, "What? You didn't tell us that." So you were in what was it called? Model Citizens. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Bruce? Did you know that you was in it?
I did not.
Okay, so you haven't watched it then?
I have not watched it because I don't have any means of watching it.
You don't have a TV?
Yes, I don't have any subscription to Amazon or whatever it's on.
Oh, is that where it's? Is that where it is?
Yeah, Amazon Prime.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yep.
So okay.
Well, actually, you don't need Amazon Prime to view it. I think Amazon Prime you can view it for free, but just a basic subscription, I think you can rent it online for like $5.
Oh, all right, yeah. Off of Amazon, you can rent it online. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So no excuses now, Bruce.
Yeah, come on, Bruce. Now that and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. Are you a science fiction fan?
For the most part, I think I'm more science fantasy than science fiction. So I actually kind of like Star Wars a little bit better than Star Trek.
Okay, I'll accept that. Although I'm not fussy. I wish they had kind of just stuck to the original. Like every movie they make, they try to make it more spectacular than the last one.
Yeah, I think that's part of the modern marketing gimmick is that it's got to be better than the last. It's got to be more flashier.
Yeah, I know. All right, so tell us about being on Model Citizens. How did that all come about?
I think I actually heard the interview with Sarah Kelly on AML.
Ah,
And I think that's how I found out that she was going to be in Springfield.
ah. So
So
you.
I was introduced to her, and we just got talking, and she's like, "Oh, can I interview you?"
Well, that's cool.
And yeah, then that's how I got on.
Wow, how cool is that? Do you really believe? Do you really think you heard about? Now, come on, are you serious? You actually heard it on AML, and that's how you found out she's going to be in Springfield?
Yes, actually,
Wow.
yeah, because it was someone someone had made. Actually, no, we were driving. Me and Lou were driving to a train show. I think it was to the Marlboro train show, Marlboro, Massachusetts, and we were listening to it.
Ah, cool. Lou
Uh,
Pampanello,
yep,
a winger, right? A winger for the New York Islanders.
exactly.
I love you, Lou. That's I know what I'm doing, but never mind, Lou. Just enjoy it. But next year, Lou, I want to get an autographed New York Islanders shirt from you. Um. Okay. Well, that's cool. So she can and she put you in the movie and all that. That's cool because at that time you were a girl and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, because I know one of her big focus with the documentary is not just to kind of show what the hobby is all about, but the diversity that exists within it.
I know. Like that is the best part about doing this podcast. This is walking away easily the best part about doing this podcast. Up until I started, I'd been in all kinds of different areas of model railroading, but starting to do this, I've met and talked to so many people. This hobby is like way bigger than anybody realizes. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It just is
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
like it's
A
like
lot.
it is. It's just way bigger than anybody realizes. So here's my question. Another, do you think the hobby's growing?
I think so. It may not be as visible as it used to be in the past. I think it's growing in its own ways.
Yeah, like I think it's growing because of the internet.
Right. Absolutely. In the past, you would see people like more or less publicly display it. Versus nowadays, I think it's more kind of reserved. It's kind of more hidden, so to speak. It's definitely a niche hobby.
Yeah,
Certainly not mainstream.
no,
But
that's true. But it almost seems like it's becoming more mainstream than it was before because so many people can be exposed to it.
right, exactly.
I mean, look at
Um,
this. Look what we're doing now. You're in Hartford, and I'm just north of Toronto, and we're having a chit chat, and we're going to be able to publish it, and yada yada yada, and people will find
mhm.
out about you, and more people will know about Kaylee Zheng. So, are you online anywhere? Do you have any online presence with your model railroading?
Not yet. I am on Facebook, so you can usually find me there. But as far as posting my own stuff, it's still in the early days. So I'm thinking about eventually, once I get underway with my layout, it may actually have its own page. So keep an eye out for that.
All right, except I would disagree with you. I've heard so much about your clinics about sound. I think you should do something with that on online at least. Have some sort of Facebook page or something because people are very interested in that and
Mm.
very impressed with that. I mean, like I said, everybody said you got to interview Kaylee, you got to interview Kaylee, and I'm like, okay, I will. And that's as it turned out, it's awesome. I mean, it's like, is there anything we haven't covered? We got the music, we got the fact that you're keeping me in the air when I'm flying.
Yep.
We got the fact that
And
you,
just turns our passenger swim.
yeah, yeah. Um, and we got the fact that you got going over to Chris Adams' house and you're good friends with him. He's one of those fit
Yeah.
guys. He's one of those fit guys.
Yeah, I don't know, but we won't hold it against him
No,
too much.
no, I don't hold it.
No, no.
I don't hold it. I don't
It's
hold.
just somewhat irksome.
Yeah, Bruce. Once again, you've managed to crystallize my thoughts perfectly. It's irksome, Chris. I know you're listening to this. I'm tired of seeing you. It's 6 o'clock and I'm out having my morning ride. Like, no, I don't want to hear. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see about your running. I don't want to. I got it. You're fit. That's great. Um, okay, so that's cool. And then there's Lou, your buddy Lou. Now I can't even remember his last name, his real last name. Lou Pampano.
Papineau.
Papano. I almost had it.
You were close.
Yeah, I know. And you belong to the New Haven Club. And what's happening
Yep.
with the New Haven Club? Do they have a layout?
Yeah, we're actually working on a new layout. We had a layout, but we ended up throwing a stick of dynamite to it and starting over.
Okay, and whereabouts are you guys? Because that's a fairly whereabouts are you guys building your layout?
So we're located. The club is located in the basement of the old Wallingford train station, because there's a new one now. Um, so that's where the permanent layout is located. We do have two traveling layouts, an HO scale traveling layouts that we pretty much take it to 95% of the shows.
Okay,
And then an O scale layout that we only take to the Springfield train show.
which is that's where I was standing. That's where we were standing when I interviewed you.
Right. So usually we're in the Better Living Center. We're the actually layout with the brass lift bridge that opens up every half an
Yes.
hour.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yep, that's my club.
And Wallingford, where is Wallingford in relation to New Haven, that station?
That's like 20 minutes north of New Haven.
Okay, so you get around. You get around the New England area.
Pretty much. I certainly put some miles on the car.
All right, and any I can. What are you driving? What set of wheels do you have?
Nissan Altima,
Beautiful.
2010 Nissan Altima. I love that car. It's
Yeah,
been great to me.
you can't go wrong with that.
Yep.
Let's see what else. Okay, so you get. All right, so here's a question. So you're building a new layout. Are you guys an organized club, or do you guys have people that want to do things the old way and people that want to do things the new way, or are you able to? Have you been able to focus yourself?
We for the most part are pretty focused, but I think like any club, we do suffer we have a lot of members, but not a lot of people actively working on the layout. So that kind of helps in setting a path forward with the layout.
Right. Okay.
And that's kind of what ended up happening with the first layout. Why we ended up axing it was because there was so many people going in so many different ways. From a troubleshooting standpoint, it was a nightmare.
Yeah, because just too many people had their hands in the pot.
Right.
And you work at Tom and you work sort of so you work at Tom's Trains, but you work primarily in helping people get their stuff going and keeping things running and that stuff.
Right. Hmm.
And what's your favorite? What are your four favorite shows of the year in that area? Springfield.
For Springfield is one, yes. Although it's a long one. It's a long one. It's a long day. It's 2 long days actually.
And do you consider yourself to be lucky to be living that close to the Springfield show? Because I mean, when we tell people, I've had my friend Peter Borchardt. He comes from England, and John was telling us that it's Sacerdoti, right? Is it John?
Hmm.
Am I saying
Yep.
that right?
Yep. Hmm.
He was telling, like we have people from England, and John was telling us that people come from Australia. So
Hmm.
do you feel like you realize that you're fortunate to live that close, or?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. Because Springfield is such a mecca, such an icon in the hobby
Yeah.
that you really could call it a pilgrimage.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I think
so the
it's become the thing you have to do.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
If nothing else, visit once
Yeah.
because it's kind of like Train Fest, but
Not even close.
yeah, there's just a different atmosphere about it. It's kind of hard to place.
Yeah, it's like I've been to Train Fest 3 or 4 times, and it's absolutely a great show, and you can't beat it. But the best way I describe Springfield to people that have been to Train Fest is you can put the main building at Train Fest inside the Better Living Center and still have room left over. And
Hmm.
then there's still another 3 buildings after that you got to go visit.
Right. Hmm.
It's like crazy, just crazy.
Yep. Case in point, this was the first year where I actually wasn't able to make it to all 4 buildings.
Yeah,
And even of the 3 buildings I was in, I only barely saw each corner.
I know. It's like you're just lost in there. I remember the first time, Bruce, you and I went, we just were standing there in the middle of it going, what the heck?
Exactly.
We didn't
What
know.
did we get ourselves into?
Yeah.
They would say, "Well, we missed that over there. Now, how do we get there?"
Yeah, exactly. We walked and walked and walked.
Yep.
Don't forget to go to Jim Sacco's booth, City Classics. He's my buddy. He always lets us hang out at his booth. So what's the second show that you like to go to in New England?
Second show is probably the Marlboro show in Marlboro, Massachusetts. It's
Okay.
kind of like a scaled down version of the Springfield show.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
And
but well, aside from the clubs, but just the amount of things you can get there. They had a white elephant table, that you can really find some very interesting goodies and whatnot.
right. And
There's and then there's also another table where I think club members just bring their stuff in and sell. So you can score some pretty decent deals there too.
all right. And how many white elephants are you going to get for your layout? I
Well,
apologize.
there's one.
I think Prizer makes those.
Yeah,
I was
there
gonna
you
say.
go. Oh my goodness gracious! All right, I think we've covered everything. Is there anything we didn't cover, Kaylee?
Well, I still haven't finished number 2 and 3,
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
or number 3 and 4
All
rather.
right, okay, okay, Springfield,
So
Marlboro.
Springfield, Marlboro, and then Cheshire in Cheshire, Connecticut.
And
And then number 4. Number four.
Cheshire. Where the heck is Cheshire?
The RPM meet.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I could say the RPM meets, but I don't really consider those to be a train show per se.
Right.
Simply because the primary focus of the RPM meets is more about learning. It's about the clinics versus train shows, kind of more for the public.
I got to find out. It's another one of my quests is to find out. I think it was a fellow named Martin Lofton that started RPM meets in Chicago, in Naperville or Naperville in Chicago. But I got to find out if that was because we cannot ignore the fact that if this guy was the one that started RPM meets, we cannot ignore the fact that that is the case because they spread like wildfire throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like that idea just caught on, and we can't ignore the fact that if it was Martin Lofton that started it, we got to find out who it was and give the man some credit.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. So if we just kind of lump a train gathering,
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the RPMs will be the top tier.
Yeah, they're great. They're always a lot of fun. And how many people do you think they get at the Northeast one?
Oh, I think last year we broke a record, and I think it was like 220. I want to say.
All right, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's smaller, but it's more focused, and that's kind of why I enjoy it. Is that, you're in a community with similar ideas, similar likes. You may be doing different things,
right?
But the whole premise of it is to kind of be there, share ideas, and just kind of enjoy each other's company.
And I think more and more people will start going to RPM meets once they discover them. I don't think they're necessarily well known.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one in St. Louis is huge, and I think it's just a simple case of the more people realize they're there, the more the bigger they'll start to become. I think that's just a natural progression because they're just fun to go to and hang out, and like you say, just be with people that are really enjoy the hobby.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Now I think we've worn you out. We've asked you a million questions and we've worn you out. And now that we got to the end of it, I'm even more excited to know Kaylee Zheng than I did before.
Woohoo!
Yeah. What do you think, Bruce?
Exactly.
We
learned a lot tonight.
We learned tons. And I think you should be putting stuff up on the internet. I think you should start a page about sound and all that stuff because people would be really interested in and what you do. We have a friend I mentioned him earlier in the show, Ralph Renzetti, where he insisted that he needed a Facebook page, and I tried for months to talk him out of it, but finally he insisted, and everybody enjoys his weathering. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Certainly, our email address, if you want to use this internet fad thing to get in touch with us. Our email address is modelerslife, modelers with one L, modelerslife@gmail.com.
That's right. And we got to tell everybody about our website, modelerslife.com. And we got to tell everybody they can see us on Facebook at Facebook.com/modelerslife. And we have a Patreon page, but all that stuff is on our website at modelerslife.com. And now, Kaylee, we have something really important for you to do.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is like the most important part of the whole show.
Okay.
Bruce will tell you this is like
Pressure's on, Kaylee. Pressure's on.
this is what makes or breaks the show. Like we get
Oh
people
dear.
people get to this part and it's like if it's not done right, it's just it ruins the whole show. But for now I'll just have to kill time until I actually get to the place where it is.
On the script.
On
He's searching for the script.
I'm searching for the script on my iPad because I'm not particularly organized, so it's like this is there and that's there and this is here and blah 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 blah. All right, so at the exact moment, all right, where is it? I got to find it. I actually should know it off by heart by now, shouldn't I, Bruce?
You ought to have a piece of paper stuck to your monitor with it on.
No, I'm not sticking pieces of paper and post-it notes to my monitor because I'm one of these people that where I go, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll make lists, and all that happens is I end up with 1,000 lists or pieces of paper because it still doesn't get done. So anyway, so at the appropriate moment, Kaylee, what you have to do is say, happy rails to you.
Got it.
And you'll know when that is. And the key is to say it with gusto.
Happy rails to you.
Yeah, but not yet.
Okay. Got it. That was a practice
It
run.
was a practice, exactly.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah, you're on deck and you're just taking a few practice swings, just a couple of
Exactly.
All right, okay.
And hopefully the bat doesn't slip out of the hands and poke you in the eye.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Kaylee, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
It's another Lincoln Homer.